Ain't that just a little bit heavy here? This is Rudy Reyes on the Two Lines Twos Radio Network, right here on the Root Dog Show. Welcome to another great hour. We're going to discuss all things NFL, and with a very special guest who has seen the lights on the football field. He's protected quarterbacks during his time in the league, and it just so happens he's a Super Bowl champion. Welcome, the incomparable Antoine Mcclain to the show. Antoine, thank you for taking your time out to join me this afternoon on the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, not a problem at all. Look, you're going to hang out with me the entire show. If people don't know who Antoine Mcclain is, you need to know a few things about him. He's bright, he's smart, he's funny, and he's very knowledgeable in the game of football, graduating out of Clemson. And when I look at the Baltimore Ravens at number 74 being an offensive guard, you can probably attest to a variety of topics. We're going to talk about the preseason here for just a moment, because you won a Super Bowl with the Baltimore Ravens. You were with the Raiders, the Buffalo Bills, the New Orleans Saints, Chicago Bears, Arizona Cardinals, and currently the Baltimore Brigade, which is an American football league team. Antoine, you played in the NFL.
Yes, I have.
You played
in doing that.
Absolutely. Well, again, it is a privilege. You're right. You're absolutely right. And we're going to talk about privileges as well. But you played there in preseason games for a variety of years in your tenure, and you've seen some serious injuries, especially in the preseason set. In some situations, changing the direction of the players' lives is sometimes due to those injuries. Some stay in the NFL, and if extremely serious enough, those players retire prematurely. As of now, there are over 20 known ACL injuries in this NFL preseason. You would think something like this would probably not happen, or at least in the regular season it would occur. But it's just amazing over the last month, essentially, of watching these NFL games. What are your thoughts about the preseason as a whole? Is it necessary? Should we have one quarter? Should we have one game, 2 games, 3 games? Or should preseason be boxed altogether and shelved for the time? Because what happens is you have players fighting for a roster spot. Well, if they get injured, they get waived. And when they get waived, sometimes another team isn't able to pick them up. They're on the waiver wire for forever. Should the NFL seriously be looking at preseason, and should they wrap it up, or should they maybe minimize it or leave it alone?
Well, in my opinion, experiencing with preseason, it's a way for guys to get reps. It's a way guys get seen on film. And I think we should have like two games. I wouldn't say scrap it all together, because you look at young guys after that, they're trying to get seen, and even if they have a chance to make a team, they have a chance to make another team. And for the older guys, the veterans, it's a chance for those guys to, better their chances of playing better and getting more reps to polish their game.
Well, I
4
understand.
games, maybe.
Yeah, 4 games a little much. Right. I completely agree with you. I don't know if they should shelve the entire preseason process, but I'd say instead of 4, split that in half. Make that 2 games. That's more than enough film. Why? Because these guys are trying to make the roster. They're being put on the field. They're in a nickel set, or they're in a prevent D at the goal line. There's more than enough film throughout any given game where you can gain enough film. So 4 games.
Right, in that last game, I think coaches already made their decision already. I think there's a chance for younger guys to make their case and be, more vibrant on film. But 5 games, that's too much in my opinion.
Yeah, no, we're definitely not going to go to 5. I think the preseason may get cut down. Maybe what I would do is this. If I was the NFL and I was the commission, I would drop the 4 games off to a 3 game. Right? You have 75% likelihood of going 2-0 or 3-0 or 0-3. Forget the 0-4. Forget the odd number, because you want the even number. If these guys want to be a part of an NFL system, coaches are the ones that put them in position to get on the field anyway. And if they're going to win a preseason game, because winning a preseason game means basically nothing. So you go perfect in the preseason, and then you go 0-4 in the regular season. Preseason means nothing. But when you look at these guys, and I know you've seen some, I know you've met some, and I know that you know of them, guys that you have played with, fellow players that have basically left the NFL due to injury. When you see that happen in your mindset, in your experience, does it make you even think twice about playing in the NFL any longer? Or is it, well, that's a tough break. I'm sorry to hear that, bro. You know, maybe we can catch up at another point. I'll call you, that type of situation.
Yeah, well, when some guys get hurt, and it may be career-ending or season injury, but for a younger guy, it's tough on them because they just not starting. But when you see injury happen, you kind of suck it up as whatever it is because you sign up for it. I know that's a wrong mentality to have, but that's the thing about faith, having faith and believing that you work hard and serve yourself and prevent injuries. That's what working out for, but you never know what's going to happen. So you just say a prayer and you go out there and do all you can. If it happens, if it don't happen, you got to live with it. But it sucks. But that's the mentality we've been raised to have when playing football.
Well, and you've played it for a very, very long time. You were drafted out of Clemson, and were there guys collegiately? Do you see that the mindset has changed from what you look at in the NCAA versus what you see in the NFL as far as injuries, how it affects players? I mean, clearly, an NCAA team is not going to put somebody on a waiver wire. There's no such thing because they're attending that college, they're in the college, they're invested in there, they're taking classes, they're taking courses. You know, they're embedded in the culture, if you will. But is there a differential for mindset in between those college players that get injured that can still stay on the roster or at least become on an injured reserve list versus being in the NFL and getting cut because you break or tear an ACL or PCL or break a fibula or something of that nature? Is there any differentials from a mindset that you've noticed?
Yeah, it's totally different. Because I can't speak for every school, but the school that I played at, and guys when guys experience injuries and can't play anymore, he do a good job of making those guys, student coaches, finding something for them to do to also contribute to the team and make them feel still a part of the team rather than NFL. If you're not a marquee player, they send you home, either an injury settlement or if they're not severe enough, they just send you home and say you good luck. But part of the NCAA standpoint, I think they do a good job of helping those guys find their identity outside of football. Versus the NFL, they have programs now that help you develop yourself off the field, but I think the whole concussion aspect of it, everybody is taking a series out of that and developing programs and new seminars to make coaches and teams aware of it.
To your point there, you talk about CTE, and I've talked about it on the show a myriad of times, and clearly when you look at the staggering figure of over 45% of players that leave the NFL have CTE, did that at any point scare you? I mean, was it something that just hit you in the face and say, okay, is it my time? Am I going to get thrown out? Am I going to, is this going to be my very last game because of a concussion?
Right. That's kind of new. That those studies are showing that most football players are getting that diagnosis with CTE. Thank God that I never had a chance to be through such a protocol, but that's very scary though. But at the same time, I've never really had any serious head injuries, so my heart goes out to the guys who are diagnosed with that. And I think it's going to be a more serious thing that they're going to look at now.
Yeah, no, I completely, it's an ongoing study. This is ongoing. The types of reviews, the types of diagnosis, the types of investigative processes. It's a scary thing. So many famous Steelers have passed away from it, former Oakland Raiders. I mean, this is an ongoing problem. There are always companies trying to find cutting-edge technology because, again, that's what we have now. Before, we didn't have any of this. There was no way to test for a concussion. And back in the 60s, you're thinking, concussion? How do you spell that? You know, maybe there were too many hits on the head. And at that point, it's too late. You can't even spell concussion. So it's a real sad situation. It's sad to hear about these guys going down early and often. I've interviewed a ton of players Fortunately enough, the guys that I've had the pleasure of interviewing and gals have not had those types of situations happen to them. So my heart goes out to them. Speaking of heartfelt, I don't know, for lack of a better term, my heart goes out to everybody in Houston right now. I know they're dealing with a very horrific situation. I know that Houston gameplay was transferred along with the preseason game against the Cowboys. They had to drive all the way to Frisco. It's about a 4-hour drive from Houston, Texas. So, and then J.J. Watt's doing some pretty fantastic things, also raising a bar for all of these victims. Right now, I think they're working on $3 million. I think it's just a continuous effort at 2.5. Look, if you're not giving back in some way, whether you're doing this and broadcasting the situation that's going on over there, or you're contributing money or your time. Look, if I had the ability and I had specialized in it, I would be in Houston right now helping people. But unfortunately, my work is here behind a microphone.
Right, and Obama's even out there helping people with their homes and serving people and whatnot, and a lot of people are helping. And I see everybody's on Joel Osteen's back about opening a church, but at the same time, I think about this man, how he started out too. But I think people are doing a good job of showing their heart and reaching out to Houston and showing their respect and helping those people out there.
Yeah, I agree, and I will add to that, Antoine, by saying that every NFL team should be contributing at least $1 million to this fund. At least $1 million, if not more. The Houston Texans did it. Well, it's their hometown. Why would they not? They have J.J. Watt doing it. His brother T.J. has helped reinforce it. I'm sure giving some of his own money to that cause because he resided there. So everybody, all NFL teams, the NFL as a unit needs to send them $1 million. I mean, how much money did people bet on this McGregor-Mayweather fight? I think some astronomical number was almost close to $1 million by a corporation, and they couldn't take that money and forget the bet, send it in to help people? I don't understand.
They don't have it.
Exactly. They do have it. They're just not using the funds accordingly. So hopefully everybody can contribute something. Go to the Red Cross. Go to the Red Cross, I believe it's .org, and contribute something. Help out in some way. For me, it's a public service announcement. And that's what I'm doing here on the Rude Dog Show on the 2 Live Studios Radio Network. I'm your host, Rudy Reyes. We have Antoine Mcclain here. Antoine, we were talking about guys going down, and I hate to see this. I hate to see ACLs, PCLs, knee issues, guys that are going down there trying to fight to get a spot. It's potentially life-changing. I mean, between 22, 23, makes it even harder because your life is just getting started. And I've spoken to a lot of players, and even those that are in Division II football and NCAA, but the game is going to take a toll on you, regardless of what position you're in. Wide receiver, quarterback, lineman, guard, DB, tackle, it doesn't matter. And what's really interesting is that when I speak of preseason, I want to dive into this, Antoine, about those players who have either started in their rookie season, making an impact on either side of the ball, or those who are seeking redemption from either an injury, suspension, that we're clearly headed to the last week of preseason. Saturday will be the final game set. And of course, Steelers, Panthers come to mind. Of course, that always comes to mind. One of the first things I talk about. But when we look at players who stand out in the 2017 NFL Draft, this starts off by number 5. And when I say it starts by number 5, because we have 4 more guys to talk about. Number 5 is a rookie who's been in a battle for his life in the latter part of his collegiate career while at Pitt. That should ring a bell. Everybody should know who that is. And if you don't, shame on you. Everyone should know who that is, and that's James Conner. Now number 30 for his hometown team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. In the absence of a certain running back, without mentioning any names, has very little bearing on what the Steelers' game plan is when it comes to running the ball. And the writing couldn't have been on the wall any more brighter than neon yellow. I say yellow because James Conner wears a yellow uniform. I think that the Steelers did their due diligence by drafting James Conner, unbeknownst there'd be a holdout by Le'Veon Bell. Conner has shown some versatility in the offensive scheme. At least up to this point, he has seen a lot of time thus far in preseason, and with 124 yards of offense in 2 games played, I've ever seen not only great play from Conner during the regular season, but to be used in maybe a blocking scheme. And I'm not saying he's the best blocker in the world, because he's not. But what makes him so good is his hands, his yak, or for those that don't know, yards after the catch. He does a great job in there. He's not a great run blocker, no, but that can be taught. So, Antoine, I have to ask you, who's your number 5?
Oh, my number 5 is one of my young guys at my school, is Martavius, because he Latavius Bryant. I watched this guy as a freshman come in and do his thing and put his name on the big stage. But also, I watched him not make the right decision sometimes, and it cost him the season. And I see that he's trying his best to redeem himself and do all the things on and off the field right, so he can get his name back, and also get a chance to show what he has on the field. We all know the guy's very talented.
Very, very much so. I know he spent some time in Nevada, and that is not my number 5, but I can't give away what position it is because we're still rolling down. But that's actually a really good choice. I enjoy watching Martavius Bryant. I had a chance to meet him in 2014 when he was drafted out of Clemson by the Steelers. Very nice guy, very well, put through, very polished. At that point, he's put on a lot of weight, a lot of muscle, and has become even better of a player. And we'll go through all the other dynamics here shortly. My number 4 is Reuben Foster of the San Francisco 49ers. Look, this young man has impressed me, not only while he was in Alabama, but he's a young star coming into his own, drafted by the San Francisco 49ers in a relatively new-look defense that's already turning heads for 49er fans all over the place. He has 5 sacks, 3 assists, and a near win against Minnesota this past Sunday. I had a chance to speak to Reuben Foster at this year's SB Awards in Los Angeles, and he said he isn't worried about the defense, and he would contribute everything he has and will be doing his best to help the team defensively. I think he has a bright future in the NFL, and if he refines his skill set even more and bring the ferocity he did while he was at Alabama, I really foresee him as being a serious stud and a pass rushing maniac while with the San Francisco 49ers. And besides, he has Nick Ferguson to help him grow in his position. Obviously, despite being a new position for Nick, it's just as though from a new, fresh coaching perspective, you don't run into the same habits. You don't have the same problems you did the year before, and so on and so forth. You have Nick Ferguson as a new position for him, but he knows the game very well. He played with a lot of great guys, including the GM for the 49ers. So you have to look at him as someone who has a solid relationship with Reuben Foster, Ferguson, and the 49ers. Who is your number 4, Antoine?
Well, my number 4 is my guy, Tyrod Taylor. And I say that because I watched this man get skipped in the draft. Guys who been drafted before him who may not even be playing anymore. And I watched this guy sit back in the Georgia system in Baltimore. I watched him as a young guy got his way to the top, playing behind Joe Flacco, and then he goes to Buffalo and shows what he can do, and he gets paid. But I don't think he has his best season yet. And he also did a great job battling obstacles, like even the concussion just sustained. And I pray that he comes back stronger than ever. And I know he's a fighter, and he's a great guy, and he's a great leader. So, and being between all those coaches and coordinators and offensive line coaches and offensive line issues, he still managed to flourish and be the guy that I know he can be. So, and I think he has a chance to be something great for Buffalo that they need. So hopefully his injury will surpass him and he will get back on the field to do what I know he can do.
I've seen him scramble, and I like Tyrod Taylor as a person. He reminds me of when the Buffalo Bills acquired Doug Flutie. And what I mean by that is about his escapability, the fact that he can get in and out of situations and use his legs, use his smarts to get out of trouble. And instead of taking a sack, he said, this is not a run option play, but guess what? We need the first down. Got to keep the chains moving.
Right.
That's what it's
That's
about.
why I love him.
And that's one of the reasons why I appreciate his body of work. I don't know that he's the right fit in Buffalo, however. Why? Because they don't have a great offensive line. He's been sacked a myriad of times. You stated about his concussion. I think that that's an issue. And unless his offensive line really finds a way to protect him and his wide receivers to get open along with his tight ends, he's in for another very long season. But don't forget, this is a very tough AFC East. So if Tyrod Taylor is going to shine, he's going to have to do it early and often, and that's on every single offensive option that he has to either run or pass the ball and get it out of his hands a lot sooner than he's been known to do so. So hopefully Tyrod Taylor can do something with the Buffalo Bills and turn the upcoming season around. I'm not saying it's over because everybody starts at 0-0. You know that, Antoine. Everything's given at this point until the regular season starts, and then there's a real expectations when it comes through from non-reality to a reality. And of course, there's always chat here on the Rude Dog Show on Spreaker. That ninja said Tyrod Taylor being whiteballed by the Bills. Interesting take. Organization gets rid of all its players. Yeah, and I've seen those trades too. Ragland, it's amazing. I'd say I think that Tyrod Taylor would be better suited moving on. I'm just throwing that out there to another team that utilizes.
I think Tyrod, in my opinion, can flourish wherever he is. If they could ever get the right people in order for him to flourish, then it happens. But I think he also makes that locker room better too. Because he's a great leader. He stays where he stays in his comfort zone. He has high water in his veins. He never gets overconfident. So I think whenever the right time for him to flourish, it's going to happen. But I agree with you. Buffalo might not be a good fit, but I think anywhere he goes where they can tailor things around him, he will be a great quarterback.
I do too, and I've mentioned it here on the show before. Nobody really wants to talk about it, but it's the player that fits the system, not the system that fits the player. And when I say that, I mean there's so many opportunities for guys that I talk to, that you've spoken to, that are just trying to get a shot in the NFL. At 30 past the hour, we're going to have one of those young men joining me here on the Rude Dog Show. And of course, Antoine Mcclain joins me, Super Bowl champion for the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to have to go with number 3 here, and here's why. Look, number 3, this is probably an unexpected pick, and you've obviously have heard of him. You cannot unhear of someone. That's impossible. But with my number 3, those of you could say I'm jumping on the completion bandwagon, or maybe a comeback trail with only one person, and you may have already figured out who I'm talking about, and that's Jay Cutler. I've never truly been a fan of Jay Cutler. I will self-admit it right here on the show. I have not. And perhaps I've said a couple of times, don't pull a Jay Cutler. Why? Because many, as recall, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Antoine, but looking at him last year with the Bears, his season was filled with more interceptions, more miscues, more problems than touchdowns. 137 attempts while only completing 81 of them. A lot of it had to do with his offensive line, but it had to do with his mental breakdown. Maybe he didn't bite the system. Maybe he didn't fit the system. Maybe it just was not for him. But I'll say this is not the same Jay Cutler we've grown to say what he can't do, but he's finding a way to prove those who counted out before he ever arrived with the Dolphins this year as a 34-year-old quarterback. I'm not quite convinced, because this preseason is just nothing but a bowl of vanilla ice cream, and it's melting. Every second it's melting. And it's melting away, and it's ticking down into the regular season. I'm not convinced, despite this coming to a screeching halt, that Cutler is a real deal until he proves it in the regular season. Period. End of story. His numbers will indicate otherwise. But could Cutler have comeback player of the year consideration? Could people actually be saying that Cutler deserves an MVP if he plays the way that everybody knows that he does? And I think the biggest obstacle that he has is himself. When it comes to completions, mental errors, problems, interceptions, untimely throws, not following his reads, not following his progressions, and just falling apart. So I'm not sold on Jay Cutler yet, but who's your number 3, Antoine?
Well, to piggyback on what you were saying about Cutler, well, whatever it is, coaches like it, him and Mark there. I think that a consistent level is an issue, but whatever they're doing, or not doing, somebody's always giving them a chance. So I don't know. We'll see though. But my number 3 is John Smokey Brown from the Cardinals. And I know he throughout the season he's been playing. He battled a couple injuries and he hurt, but when this guy is on, he is on. I mean, he gets everything. So I think with Larry coming close to his maybe his last season or whatnot, I think he would be one of those guys who step in some more receiver, if not a number 2, along with Jerome Brown. But I'm sorry, Jerome Brown. I'm going to kill me saying that, but
I will tell him if you will.
I think this season, if he can stay healthy, and I think he will help lead that team to not an AFC, championship game and not Super Bowl, or NFC. So, in my opinion, he's a game breaker, he's a game changer. He's not a big guy, but that guy has the wheels, he has the intelligence, and he has the work ethic to be one of the dumbest receivers in this league.
Well, time's going to tell that it's not very certain that they have a great quarterback under center. When I say great, Carson Palmer doesn't strike me as being great. He's very good, but at times he's pulled a Jay Cutler. Oh, wait, did I say that? Yeah, he pulled a Jay Cutler of last year. Arizona was poised to go into the playoffs, then he got injured and everything fell apart. Why? Because they don't have a great backup system there. And we can talk about that at another time. But number 2 for me isn't a glaring omission when you look at a guy by the name of Derek Carr. Injured last year and looking for redemption this year. He went down prematurely. Practically any playoff chances that the Raiders may have seen ultimately slip away. Carr, despite a slow start, he managed to pick up steam in the driver's seat as he went 13-17, 142 yards, including a 48-yard touchdown reception to Amari Cooper. This may sound familiar to some and to others. It's a call you may hear a lot of. Is he looking better than ever? Man, it's preseason, so we don't know what a regular season looks like, but I will tell you this. We will only know once he takes that first initial hit to that labrum to see if he's going to get hurt, if he's injury prone at that point, or if he can get right back up and do exactly what he did the play before. I think you'll see a lot of big numbers and big things from Derek Carr, not to mention he's coming off his best season with the Oakland Raiders despite being injured. 357 yards out of 560 attempts. We're right here. Give us one moment. We're almost done with this session. Completing over 63% of his passes. I believe that the connection will be relatively similar and similarly placed into capable receivers' hands. Who is your number 2, Antoine?
Number 2, I have Adrian Peterson. And I know he got a lot of backlash from his last former team, but I think he has done a great job when he comes back from injury adversity. He comes back like a ball of fire. So I don't know how preseason may not be going the way he wanted to go, but I think once you get in season and gets in the game beast mode, I think he will be a total game changer. Because we all seen it. Everybody says he may be older or whatnot, but I think he's still got the keys to be one of the top running backs, if not the top running back, besides like David Johnson and all those guys. But I think he could be a complete factor, and also the quicker offensive line to do something great and different, and also a good tandem with Drew Brees. So I think Adrian Peterson has a chance to do something great in New Orleans, and I pray hope he does, because I'm a huge fan of his. But his track record and his work ethic shows that he's one of the best running backs.
I like the Adrian Peterson call for a lot of reasons. He wanted the kind of money that Minnesota. How can I explain this? He wanted the money that the Saints were going to pay him. He didn't want to stay in Minnesota. I don't think it was all about money for him. I think that he tarnished his image while he was there, and I think it was just a new place, a new situation. They paid him because he dropped off. He didn't say, I want starter money. Well, he's going to share that backfield. He's going to share the backfield. And when he does, he's going to realize that he's not number one, that this is a team effort. It's not all about him. Now, I'm not saying that mentally that's what he's doing, but inadvertently, because of the type of play or the type of personality that he's shown in the past. I'm not saying he's not humble, but I think this situation favors him a lot better. I think he could thrive in this system. I think Drew Brees will use him on the outside, maybe in the slot situation, maybe to gain, because he's so top heavy, he's so physical that once he gets the ball, it could be a yard after catch situation. And of course, Ninja asks, he says, Rudy, what do you think of Tampa Bay? And are they set up for success with all the big acquisition in the offseason and draft, or have I missed that conversation? No, Ninja, you have not missed a conversation. I think that Jameis Winston, and actually, let me go a step back. This Hard Knocks thing was very good for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from a lot of different perspectives. It put them on the spot. And that's one of the reasons why Jameis Winston was talking about owner accountability. They were, when you enable yourself to take control over what you can control, it's a lot different than trying to shift the blame to somebody else. And I think that Jameis Winston is growing in front of our very eyes. They did make some big acquisitions. They did it in the draft, and you didn't miss that. I think that when I look at Jameis Winston, he's grown up before us. I was listening to John Gruden on ESPN, and he was talking about how there were a lot of mental errors. He has to correct the interception to completion ratio and the catch ratio. That has a lot to do with it. And I think that Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that brutal NFC South, I think, can rise to the occasion and really surprise some people this year. But I got to skip to number one. Then we're going to get to our special guest. But good question, Ninja. Thank you for chiming in on that. I'm going to say number one has some shiftiness for me. And it may not be who you think it is. It's a road to recovery, but certainly didn't come easy. And neither can jumping through hoops that are on fire. Those can't be carried out easily either. Despite missing all last year due to suspension, this wide receiver can make his mark more so during the regular season and spending time in another state, not on the East Coast. Is Martavis Bryant, who managed to secure 5 of 6 passes thrown his way, pulling 23 yards and working his way back to a point that has been exceedingly arduous for Bryant, going through the protocol, telling the NFL, look, I'm ready to go. You can test me every day if you'd like. I'm going to run through whatever hoops I need to because I want to play again. And it's really fortunate to know that the Steelers didn't give up on him. They could have easily cut ties and said, you know what, you did it to yourself. You're underway. You're out and about. See you later. But they didn't. They decided to keep him.
A lot of things do that too.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Because, look, you have guys coming in the league every single year. You can tell me the very same thing, Antoine. The very same thing, that everybody's always looking to grab your spot, and that's exactly what was going on. But the Steelers wouldn't allow that. You had Eli Rogers, you put him in the slot, Antonio Brown on the outside. Marcus Wheaton really didn't play. He had a broken finger. Now in free agency is over in Chicago playing with the Bears. But I think that despite him not being a part of the Steelers offense last year, it was still very potent. Bryant is obviously one of those 3 go-to wide receivers. Yeah, and you're right. On that note from Jameis Winston, he had 4,000 yards in 2 seasons. Yeah, Gruden.
And the kid's a freak athlete.
Yeah, he is. Martavis Bryant's a freak. I seen workout videos of him. He was in a gym. He was hanging upside down. He was just pounding the metal. I mean, talk about heavy metal. He was lifting it the entire time. He's very athletically gifted. He's tall. He's physical. He put some weight on while he was out. Yeah, he's extremely fast. That goes without saying. The guy has movements and cuts. He can slice you up and creates a mismatch problem. He really does. And that goes to any cornerman. Look, your standard corner in the NFL is 5'9". So you're not going to really stand a chance trying to block this guy out. And I seen the Steelers trying to go with this tight end set with Martavis Bryant in the bunch, throwing it to him, and that was a blown play. I don't know what they were thinking there, but obviously Bryant is now a part of it, certainly being part of the go-to receiver set for the Steelers. And, of course, you fantasy people out there certainly need to look at him and starting him in your fantasy roster. But I think when you look at Antonio Brown this upcoming season, and when I talk about Eli Rogers, it's almost as if it's an Eli Rogers in the slot, because Eli Rogers loves the slot play. That's where he excels. That's where he's fast. That's where he's dangerous. So I think that when you say Eli Rogers, the immediate follow-through is in the slot. When you think of a comeback story, which started out self-inflicted, the Steelers felt that they had a gem when they drafted Martavis Bryant out of Clemson in 2014. But you can ask, is the trouble Steelers went through to keep him during his suspension worth the potential outcome for this dynamic wide receiver this season? I would probably err on the side of yes. Why? Because of how dynamic he is, how explosive he is. Everyone remembers that ball he caught in 2015 between his legs in the end zone. How amazing is that? But can he be the difference maker by getting the ball in his hands? I believe so. I think the athleticism of Martavis Bryant possesses a mismatch, and he's going to be a number one due to his resiliency. And I think I've seen enough of him in the preseason to know what he will be like in the regular season. And, of course, Antoine, who is your number one?
Well, my number one is Mr. J.J. Watt. I'm an offensive lineman, so I spent a lot of time watching film on this guy. And I know he was pretty banged up last year, and I know that kind of hurt him a lot now than I was seeing what he wanted to. So I think this year is going to be a different year for him again. So he's going to be the player of the year, the number one player in the top 100. All of our athletes. He's a hard-nosed player. He works hard. He's a great team leader, and he's a game changer. And I've seen him drive guys back to the quarterback. Now I've seen him. We all seen him deflect passes. We all seen him score a touchdown. He's a very energetic guy. He takes on double teams. He sacks. He do everything he can. And also, this guy was a tight end at Western Michigan, I think. So we know he's an athlete. So he's a very smart guy. So I think this year is going to be a really big year for him. They got to improve. They got past the injuries, and he can continue to be a dominant player on the highest level. And I think that team's pretty tight as well too, especially that quarterback. We ain't gonna say no names, but I think he adds a different dimension to that defense in the game as well. Because some guys are terrified to block him, and that's a intimidation alone. So that's one of the attributes that he has. So because they know he's a beast off the edge and has great technique. He's tall, he's rangy, and I mean, he's just somebody that you have to consider in your game plan every play.
You have to be prepared. I completely agree. The guy's a massive disruption in the backfield. He did play injured almost the entire part of last season, but when he's healthy, and he's healthy now, he's shown what he can do. That fantastic swim move to get around guards and tackles is just amazing. The type of penetration that J.J. Watt puts on opposing offenses it's going to be something that Steeler fans are going to be happy about as well, because we have his brother, T.J. Watt, who's, and when you say Watt, it needs to have an explanative and maybe a question mark or an exclamation point, like, what? That kind of thing. So I think it's going to come to fruition for J.J. Watt, and I think it's going to come to fruition for T.J. Watt in his rookie year with the Steelers. Very dangerous in preseason for him. Let's flip gears here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is another interesting gentleman. He's on the phone with me now. And Antoine Mcclain. Of course, this is Rudy Reyes on the Two Live Stews Radio Network on the Root Dog Show with Super Bowl champion from the Baltimore Ravens, Antoine Mcclain. But this gentleman we're about to speak to, he's got a hard knock story of his own. And this gentleman needs a home. He's an undrafted running back, free agent. Welcome, Paul Harris, to the show. Paul, how are you? Thanks for coming on.
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on the show.
And you're on with Antoine Mcclain, too.
What you say? You can hear me. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? Yeah, I can hear you. How you doing, man? I'm doing good. How about you? I'm great. You have a great story to tell, man. And I commend you on your efforts. I commend you on your sacrifice. And your father's a good man. I can use that in faith as well, too. I'm sorry, it's like an echo. Can't really understand what you're saying.
He was just commending you. He was commending you, Paul. He's commending you because
really appreciate it.
He recognized the type of sacrifices.
Yeah, I mean, he probably fit in my shoes before, so he knows what it takes.
He's a Super Bowl champion, so I'm more than confident that he's walked very similar lines, very, very parallel to where you're at right now. So let's go into this. We're gonna turn on the Root Dog time machine here. We're gonna talk about this. you're from Columbus, Ohio, and you're growing up in a little small town. For Columbus is a small town, for everybody who doesn't know. But you wanted to play football, but your grades weren't good in high school, which obviously poses a great risk to trying to play the game of football.
Correct.
But then you found a way to rise above the occasion, recognize where you're at, and out of nowhere, from college, because you didn't receive any from any D1, any rule, no USCs and no Stanfords, no Pac-12, no SECs, none of the Big Ten. You received an offer from Toledo. Were you surprised that Toledo offered you, or were you just happy to take what was being offered?
I was surprised because my grades were so much worse than that. But they offered me a prop opportunity. I was excited when I got that opportunity, but I kind of messed it up. But I feel like all my times and tribulations led me to where I need to be right now. It's like God gives the strongest battles to the strongest soldiers, so I'm still fighting. Hopefully I fight it home eventually.
Hopefully so. That prop choice was 24 hours of credit worth, for lack of a better term. But when you messed up and you started owing the school money, what did that feel like? Did you make it feel as though you were in a hole you couldn't get out of it? What did you do to help understand what you needed to do to get that money back?
So I wasn't re-enlisted in classes. For some reason I had a home in my account, so they wouldn't let me enroll in classes. And I figured out why. It was because I owed money. And really, I was just devastated because I thought that was the only opportunity I had to play football was going to Toledo and using the moment to get 24 credit hours and being able to get on the team. But I ended up just going home, working, ended up paying the money back and working at the same time, and ended up getting in touch with one of my fellow Little League players, and he got in touch with a coach that was with the Ventura Community College. So he wanted me to get in touch with him, so I ended up calling him, and everything worked out then. He told me that he wanted me there, and I took my last check, which was $400, bought my Greyhound ticket to the Greyhound bus that was 2 days and 12 hours to get to LA. It was all worth it though.
That's tough.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. I wanted to ask, what was your thought process on that 2-day bus ride from Ohio to Cali? Was it like a sink or swim moment? Were you worried? Or were you confident that everything was going to work out? Well, when I found out the location of being in Cali, everything that I did close to home didn't really work out for me. So once I found out it was in Cali, I was like, okay, this is my moment to get away, and get away from all the distractions and be on my own. Regardless of if I have to go through some real low times, I know it's a bigger picture at the end of the tunnel. So I just gotta knuckle down while I'm here. It's either succeed or fail, and I don't have nobody to be my backbone on here, so it's nothing but opportunity for me to succeed, push myself.
That can be really humbling. That could be an humbling experience. We were talking offline about not being in a situation that favored you, and coming out to California was certainly a fresh, brand new start. I've done it. I've moved across the country, and I've seen things. I've been in new situations. What was it like being here by yourself? Was it something that you were dreading initially, or did you feel as though you were going to apply the same resilience, the same mentality back in Ohio here in California?
When I got to California, it was a rough time for me. Stayed in some dirty motels, motel that you didn't want to lay in the bed. I slept on my bag. I just take showers at the motel. I took showers at the community college, so that was just like a little visual. But as 2 months in, I ended up getting in a better living situation, and everything just was going up and up from there. Oh, that's great. That's great. I wanted to ask, when you got to Ventura College, what separated you from everybody else being that you were able to get to Hawaii? You said one more time? I said, what was one of the things that helped you separate yourself from everybody else at Ventura Community College, being that you were able to receive a full ride? Can you say what he said?
Yeah, no, that's perfectly okay. No, it's what he was asking you was the ride while you were there in Hawaii worth it by coming to California, and was it something that benefited you by being there?
He said,
well, while you were in Hawaii,
yeah.
Did you feel as though being in California was just a stepping stone to get you to better places before you landed in Hawaii?
Yeah. I'm surprised that Hawaii gave me the opportunity to have the scholarship to go there. I had a situation where I had to take 24 credits in one semester. So a lot of teams didn't want to also look at anything I was able to do that. But Hawaii took me through that process, and then once I got done, they phoned me out. Loved it out there. Really missed it. The brotherhood, the island. They really breathe, sleep Hawaii football. So I just missed the culture out there, and it was truly blessed to experience.
Yeah, I've never been to Hawaii. I mean, I've lived here in California my entire life, and I've never been to Hawaii. maybe one day. But when you were playing in Hawaii, and I've watched your film, look, NFL teams, I know you have injuries, it's untimely, it's not something you want to deal with, but if you want a guy who has proven it, look at his numbers, listen to his story. Is that not enough to indicate to you that he is worth an opportunity to be gifted upon? I think so. Paul Harris is a fantastic running back. He can run you over. He will bulldoze you to the ground. NFL teams, you guys need to be aware of this. I'm going to send this. I'm going to blast it as soon as we're done here on the Rude Dog Show with Rudy Reyes, joined by Antoine Mcclain and free agent NFL running back Paul Harris. Paul, there had to have been some type of breaking point for you. Say, why can't I get a break cut? What was it about your dad watching you work out so hard that it nearly made you cry and ask you what was the issue, what was the problem, what was going through you emotionally that helped you maybe develop clarity when it was all said and done, knowing that you hadn't been picked up by an NFL team yet?
Just was tired of going through poverty with my family and with myself, and I just feel like I have a gift that I can change the surroundings of myself and my family. And I feel like I could touch the world in multiple ways through God and just through being a motivational speaker and just a numerous amount of ways. So, like, that day just hit me like, man, you really got to give. And right now you're wasting the opportunity to do everything you want to do in life. So you need to buckle down and get to it. So, you know what I'm saying? You're not going to be young forever. You're not going to have the ability forever. So, got to seize the moment now. Everything is about now, not tomorrow, now. So forget about the past and live in the moment now and make everything count now.
Yeah, because there may not be a later. There may not be a later at all. And sometimes when you're playing, I was talking to Juwan Lewis, which you know very well, and Juwan says, you know what, right now is not the time. Right now is not to stop. No, I need to give up these endeavors. No, I'll know when, and right now is not it. And I believe that's exactly where you're at right now. Matter of fact, you're one of the few set of running backs who ran over for 1,000+ yards in a pass-first situation there in Hawaii. And you received accolades for being one of the most unselfish offensive players. But what is it about fatherhood that has changed you in such a way that gives you even more passion, more drive, more resilience to get to the next level?
Just the time I was away from football, it just made me cherish the moment when I'm on the field and seize the moment when I'm on the field, because I took it for granted when I was on the field at a younger age. And if I get the opportunity, I'm going to see every day, every moment, even if I mess up, it's one play, one game at a time. So you got to forget, if you mess up, you just got to put the next down for the next play. You know what I'm saying? Everything will work out.
I have to commend you myself, because when I hear of stories of guys, or women for that matter, laying on bags that are homeless in the middle of nowhere, scratching in their pockets, wondering where'd that nickel go, where'd that quarter go, to go from rags to not really riches. I think it's a cliche to say that there are riches involved in being homeless, but to understand what the bottom feels like enables you to not go back there again, to not be in that situation again, to not find yourself there again. So I personally commend you for recognizing your talent, for not giving up, especially now that you have a daughter. And you're still in California, waiting for an NFL team to contact you. How can, if NFL teams are listening, how can they contact you directly? Do they go through your agent? Do you have a phone number? How do they reach you?
They can call me personally. They can email me. They can contact my agent. I can give them my number. I can give you my number. You can, if they need to get in contact with me.
Tell them now, because they can hear you.
Okay, so my number is 614-702-6013. That's my cell phone number. My email is paulwh@hawaii.edu. And my agent is Leo Boaz. Number is 719-659-96.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Look, if Paul Harris, look, he has probably one of the best stories I've heard, and I've interviewed a lot of players, Paul. Yeah. I've interviewed a lot of players. And when I look at these stories and I look at what someone has gone through to just get a fighting chance to get into the NFL or CFL for that matter, I think that somebody like yourself would be a great fit in the right situation, the right locker room, the right NFL team. So, scouts, to overlook somebody like Paul Harris is a shame. Contact him, work him out. And of course, I'll do my absolute best, Paul, to help put you in contact with the right people. I'll even contact them on your behalf. I'll do whatever I can to help you, because that's what I do.
Okay, that's truly a blessing, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me on this show.
No, it's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. I love doing this because of the players that I've interviewed, and I've interviewed hundreds. One thing really comes to mind, and that's resilience. And when you're resilient and you don't take no for an answer, that means no for now, not for later. So you may not always hear that no. You fight through. Matter of fact, I'm going to share an experience I had at a recent WNBA game when the Los Angeles Sparks took on the Minnesota Lynx at Staples Center. When I went to the media desk, because I had applied for credentials, I went to the media desk, and I didn't even look at the badge. He said, "Oh, yeah, you're here." So I had my photographer. So I put the lanyard around my neck with the pass and so on and so forth, got to her seat, sat down, and I picked up the lanyard hanging around my neck, and I looked at it, and it had the Root Dog Show on it. At that point, I felt so validated because I put so much time and effort and work and endless and countless hours into it. At that point, I was validated. You will get your validation. Listen, NFL teams, get this guy a spot. I know you have one. I know you do. You're making your cuts. Call him in, try him out. Let's see what he can do in the system. If he works in your system, then hire him. He's putting everything on display. His story is here right here on the Rude Dog Show, joined by Antoine Mcclain. And of course, Paul Harris, NFL free agent running back out of Hawaii, currently residing in Southern California. Give him a call. Give him an opportunity.
Hey Paul, I wanted to ask, what would you go back and tell your younger self in high school? You know, what's the difference between my younger self and my now? Yeah, what would you tell your younger self? Well, more mature. I know right from wrong. I'm thinking about what I'm going to do. I'm thinking about my next move instead of, just reacting. I'm more composed of myself. I know what I want in life. I know what I want to do. So I've been away from football so long that I'm going to take advantage. I'm going to do everything I can to stay on the field. Extra film sessions. I'm going to be the last person to leave on the field. Make sure I know my playbook. Fast as possible. Just put my bite on the line. Put my all in whenever I'm on the team. That's a big difference from then and now.
Maturity has a lot to do with where you're headed. We all make mistakes. It's human. That's just the way it is. We're not perfect. Only God is. But when you look at where you want to be and what you're doing to change, your circumstances is commendable all unto itself, especially having a daughter now that you have to fend for. So again, I'm making my last ploy here as my time's running out here right on the Rude Dog Show on the Two Light Stews Radio Network, joined by Antoine Mcclain, Super Bowl champion of the Baltimore Ravens, right here on the Rude Dog Show. I want to thank you, Paul, for coming on sincerely. And I truly mean when I say I'm going to help you any way that I can, I do. And I will.
Thank you so much. Thank you again for having me on the show.
I wish you the best. If there's anything else you need, let me know.
Okay. All right, Paul, man. All right.
Thanks, Paul, for calling in, man. We'll talk to you soon. Antoine, what an interesting story.
That's amazing, man. It's to hear the maturity, and him thinking now, but everything you go through in your past, it's good or bad, it's bad for your future. And I've been in those shoes before too, waiting on the call and working. Everybody's in your ear telling you the wrong thing. But the longer you know in your gut that you're doing the right thing, something will happen.
Yes, it will. It definitely will. Thank you so much, Antoine, for coming on to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Antoine Mcclain right here on the Rude Dog Show. So everybody give him a little round of applause there.
Thank you guys for having me.
Not a problem. Antoine, we will talk to you soon. Thanks for coming on. This is Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show on the Two Light Stews Radio Network. Make sure you throw me a follow at Rude Dog Reyes. Go to therudedogshow.com and stay tuned to social media. You don't know what I'm going to post. And I mean that the best way possible, so don't get scared. I'll see everybody tomorrow. Have a great day. Thanks for tuning in.